Jackson Smith and Jigba over, I believe it's 43.5 receiving yards now. DeAndre Swift, so I'm going with his over on rushing yards. I believe the number is about 16.5 right now.
So we're going to go under 24.5 points for the Eagles scoring in this game tonight. Going with their team total under. I'm going to take Kenneth Walker the third anytime touchdown, plus 155.
So the first one I'm going with is DK Metcalf over 63.5 receiving yards. So it's Seahawks now. It's at 4.5. Line just moved to half point, plus minus 105 juice on it. Which actually I'm really liking the plus 194 on the money line too.
I'm also going to go with Kenneth Walker over his rushing yards. Is Nick Giffen the good luck charm of Action Island? This was a great week for Action Island. Welcome in. If you're new here, I'm Megan Payton, joined alongside Nick Giffen, Gilles Gallant, Sean Kerner. This is the Thursday Night Crew. And when the Thursday Night Crew is here, we are winning parlays. Nick came over to the Monday Night Crew just last Monday, helped out our crew there. And that was an awesome 7-0 sweep. We are here to do it again. If you're new to Action Island, it's the place to be for parlays. It's also presented by FanDuel. Great deal going on for new customers. Bet $5, get $150 money line if your team wins. This is for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome into week 16. I can't believe we're already here. It's the week of holidays, Saturday night football, Christmas Eve football, Christmas Day football, but it all starts here tonight with Saints Rams at SoFi Stadium. And look, it's kind of a rematch. I know these two teams have played before, but there's a little bit of extra motivation for the Saints always in this game. It's the rematch of that 2018 NFC Championship. It didn't end well for someone who's been around the Saints. I can tell you there's motivation in this spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a parlay built. Each of the guys are going to present two different bets that they like. We'll vote one on, vote one off. I'll give a bonus bet, and you can build it how you want. Make your own, tail ours. Either way, get in on the action at FanDuel. Nick, you'll start us off. What are you looking at for the first leg?
Yeah, well, one of the times we hit a nice parlay this year, it involved the Saints, and we took Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns. So let's do it again. We're going to go back to the well of what worked last time we did this. He has stayed under this number in 9 of 14 games this year. And actually in those 14 games, he has a total of 16 passing touchdowns. That's an average of 1.14 per game. Now, if that were to be his long-term average, which not necessarily will be, but if it were, that means we'd expect him to stay under about 68% of the time. So there's a lot of room for some regression towards a higher number while still getting better odds than that minus 166 line. He's also facing the Rams, which are a little bit better than average in terms of TD rate allowed. They're 13th best in terms of TD percentage allowed. So not the best matchup in the world for Carr. Not a bad one, but not the best one in the world either. And it's the New Orleans Saints. They're always capable of finding creative ways to not let Derek Carr pass for a touchdown, whether that's Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams rushing it in, Taysom Hill, he could rush it in, or he could even throw one himself, as we've seen before. And in that last game where we did at that parlay, Taysom did have one of those rushing touchdowns. Rashid Shaheed, he could always rush for a touchdown or get a punt return touchdown. And while we never like to talk about this, we don't root for this, part of handicapping could be an injury. We certainly don't root for that to happen, but that's always something you need to factor in when you are betting. So first pick there is Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns.
Yeah, the Saints find a lot of unique ways to get in the end zone. One thing that they do really well is pre-snap motion in the run game that allows Kamara to find ways to get lanes, get in. And so whether it's rushing the ball with him, you mentioned Taysom Hill. This is the first game in which he's fully healthy. He played last week, but now he's back. And you just imagine that that's what they like to do when they're in the red zone. They use the two guys that really impact the game the most for them, which is Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill, and a lot of different routes and ways that could actually happen, which could lead to touchdowns, lead to points, but not necessarily from Derek Carr. So Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns as the first leg. What about the second?
Yeah, so for the second leg, I am going to go with the Saints here, but I'm going to take them first half to cover the 3.5 point spread. Now, FanDuel has this game at 4.5 for the full game. So why not take 3.5 just for the first half here? In doing so, we're kind of fading the public because 80% of tickets, 80% of money, according to our data at Action Network, is on the Rams. Now, of course, that's for the full game, but similar would probably apply to the first half. And I think a lot of it is because the Rams have been so hot lately. They're playing great, but I think that's inflating this line. And the Saints, they're the unluckiest team in the NFL by our luck rankings. The Saints are 7-7. They've played more like a 9-5 team based off of their expected point differential. And if we look at point differentials, the Rams point differential is plus 17. The Saints plus 42. If we use expected score, which powers our luck rankings, the Rams expected differential is plus 30, so better. But the Saints are even better at plus 65.8, almost plus 66 there. And the Saints in general have been involved in lower scoring games. So that makes that differential even greater, right? If they were to eventually catch up to maybe play another game and catch up to the Rams, that would actually inflate to around over 70 on the expected differential at a similar total to what the Rams have. So the Saints have just been really good, but really unlucky. Now, we do need to schedule adjust that. The Rams have played the ninth toughest schedule. The Saints have played the easiest schedule in the NFL, but even schedule adjusting it brings it back closer together to where these two teams are nearly identical in what we call third order Pythagorean win percentage, which is much more predictive of future performance than wins or losses, for example, and even more predictive than just regular scoring differential. So these two teams are so close that I can't really get to 4.5 for the game on the Rams. So I'll definitely take the 3.5 in the first half. And Sean wrote an article previewing this game. He made a great point, and I know he's going to talk about it on his as well. But LA traffic, I love this for handicapping. The LA traffic is so bad that people may have a hard time populating the stadium in the beginning of the game, which would be the first half. That may negate any small home field advantage that LA already has.
Yeah, is this just our way of making it seem okay that they have no fans right now and that all of the fans that are going to be there are going to be Saints fans? That's what it's like at SoFi Stadium. I can say, though, I've driven around that area today. It's pretty packed. We've got airport traffic, stadiums right by LAX. So you imagine it's going to be pretty crowded. I definitely, if you're new to Action Island, if you're going to take anything away from this, it's buying in on the luck rankings. And you bring up a really good point. I had no idea that the Saints were the unluckiest team in the NFL. And I've been high on this game, and I honestly picked them to be my upset pick of this week. So I like Saints to win. I absolutely like Saints to cover in the first half, especially knowing how they stack up in the luck rankings. Two options, guys. We can either go with the Saints first half to cover, or we can stick with our guy, Derek Carr, under 1.5 passing touchdowns. Let's vote. Three, two, one. Where are we going? All right, Derek Carr it is. The luck rankings out of here. No, I like that. I really like both of these, and I think there's a good case for either. And again, this is what we do here. If you want to build your own, if you want to add on a fourth leg, a fifth leg, that's what this show's for. But we're going to stick with Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns. We mentioned the ways that the Saints get in the red zone and what they do and all the unique play designs they can come up with that really just eliminate Derek Carr from throwing it into the end zone. I'm cool with sticking with that. Jill, why did you like this one instead of the first half?
Yeah, I think I like both of them. I think I just cannot stand Derek Carr as a quarterback. I do not enjoy watching him play. If you have an eye test and have watched a football game of him throwing the ball, when they are in the red zone, it is near impossible to enjoy watching a football game. It's so inefficient. There's a reason why they bring Taysom Hill into the game, to be able to rush the ball and maybe even be a little bit more tricky. So again, Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns. I mean, I would rather bet Keith Kirkwood for 2 touchdowns than to bet over on passing touchdowns for Derek Carr at this point.
Should Jameis Winston be the starter, Jill?
I guess the one thing I will give credit to Derek Carr is he does throw a pretty nice deep ball, which will probably go into why some of the picks that I like. But outside of that, oh my God, it's just hard to watch. So Saints plus 3.5, I do like that for the first half spread. But Derek Carr, we got to hammer the under 1.5 passing touchdowns.
All right, that's going to be the option. Sean, you agreed with that as well. Same outlook as Jill.
Yeah, no, I love both of these, so I'm torn. I think the Saints first half plus 3.5 is probably the better standalone play. I mean, the fact that you're getting a key number like that, 3.5 for the first half, when the full game spread's not too far off, makes a ton of sense. And then, Nick used my ridiculous LA traffic point, but that applies here too. So, yeah, I love that one. But for Derek Carr, I just think it creates so many unique ways to make parlays that I think the book is, underrating how correlated some of these things are with, Taysom Hill potentially throwing a touchdown, things like that. So let's go with Derek Carr again.
One thing to note too is SoFi Stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. It's indoor, outdoor. They're gonna try to, I think, keep it kind of closed. But the point is, it's raining here in LA. It's not great weather, and SoFi Stadium was not built for the rain. I was there for the TCU championship last year, and it was terrible weather. And it's just, I don't know how much it's affecting the field, but you can tell that it's not this ideal LA sunny and 75 that they're going to be playing in tonight. Maybe that'll factor into a little bit of a slower paced game at the beginning too. First leg is going to be Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns. For the second leg, Jill, what are we looking at? Any touchdowns in this?
I think so. I think we're going to have a touchdown idea for each side. So I'm going to look at the Rams. We're going to go immediately with a pretty vanilla pick, but it's Cooper Kupp, anytime touchdown. It's around plus 135 now at FanDuel. He has scored in 3 straight games, 26 targets, 7 red zone targets in that stretch. I mean, the Stafford Kupp connection is undeniable. The Saints play man coverage at the second highest rate in the NFL, and Cooper Kupp is actually leading the Rams in targets per game and total touchdowns versus man coverage, and he also missed 4 games. So he's been thriving in that situation. Also, the teams that he has scored on over the last 3 weeks, they also play a lot of man coverage as well. You have the Ravens at 9th, the Browns are the first team, and Commanders are 10th. Cooper Kupp is heating up at the right time, so I think now is the time we need to grab him, especially when you're seeing odds around plus 135. It wasn't that long ago where he was pretty much minus odds in every game that he played. Now, for the Saints, I mentioned about how Derek Carr throws a pretty deep ball. We're going to look at Rashid Shaheed for an anytime touchdown at plus 360. So he's got 3 touchdowns this year. He is the legit deep threat on this offense. He's second on the team in ADOT. The Rams have allowed the 5th most targets to wide receivers this year, and they're also susceptible to the deep pass. 7th most passing plays allowed of 20 yards or more. Credit to Nick Giffen for putting me on that stat. Another angle is the return game. Like Shaheed is the Saints' main returner. The Rams special teams have been one of the worst units in the NFL. They're allowing a league high 14 yards per return. There's lots of ways for Shaheed to score. So around plus 360 in this offense, I really like that option. So Rashid Shaheed at plus 360 or Cooper Kupp around plus 135 will be the options for the second leg of the same game parlay.
Both are very tempting. I like the plus 360 at Rashid Shaheed, especially when you mentioned the different ways that he could score and kind of being that receiving deep threat guy for the Saints. And now with Cooper Kupp, I've kind of been on him in this game because you mentioned how much the Saints play man coverage. And I think that benefits Cooper Kupp, but more importantly, I think Puka Nacua could struggle here because Puka's been a guy that's really taken this in well. He's, the game's slow to him, yet he's really good at finding spots in zone. That's where you see Puka Nacua right now thriving, which means that he might have a little bit of a hard time playing against this man-heavy Saints defense, leads you to more Kupp receptions, Kupp touchdowns. So I think you can't go wrong with either of them. Sean, Nick, we got to vote either Kupp to get in the end zone or Rashid Shaheed. Three, two, one. Here we go.
Yes.
Hey, isn't that great when we are all on it together? Rashid Shaheed to get in the end zone. We're buying in. It feels like a little bit on the Saints in some. Okay, but actually, I want to throw this out here because I think sometimes people get confused whenever we do a Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns, but then we do a Rashid Shaheed anytime touchdowns. And I think to a blind eye, it can feel like that's not correlated. But Jill, explain first of why this actually is a correlated parlay so far.
Well, I think if anything, it's more just about what Derek Carr does and specifically how we can expose this defense. But Nick, I think actually has it probably lined up specifically. So I actually like cede this time to him because he would be able to explain it way more better than I would.
Go ahead,
I
Nick.
mean, it all comes down to the fact that, Taysom Hill could throw a touchdown pass to Rashid Shaheed. He could return one, as Jill mentioned, or it could be the only touchdown pass that Derek Carr throws is to Rashid Shaheed. So there's lots of ways for this to hit. So when books are pricing this, they often put a lot of anti-correlation, so they inflate the odds, but they don't necessarily need to in this particular spot. Maybe in other spots, it would make a lot more sense with other QBs and other receivers, but in this particular spot, it doesn't quite make as much sense. And so the odds are just overinflated compared to the probability that they actually happen. And I also just voted for Shaheed in general because our projections are showing much better projection value on Shaheed than Kupp. And that doesn't even factor in, again, the return part of that as well.
100%. Sean, what were your thoughts too in betting on the Shaheed touchdown instead of the Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, I'm just all in on Shaheed tonight, so give me that. I love that it's plus 360 because he's going to be running circles around this Rams secondary. But there's also the other path, he can rush for a touchdown. Last year, he broke onto the scene with a 44-yard rushing touchdown. So that's just another path where he can score a touchdown without Derek Carr throwing him the ball.
Well, that's going to be our second leg. We're starting with Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns, moving on to Rashid Shaheed to get a touchdown. And we aren't stopping there. Sean, give us our first leg or first option to our third leg.
So obviously it's Rashid Shaheed, but we're going to the alt market here. I'm going with over 50 receiving yards at plus 174. This is just a great spot to invest in Shaheed's over here. This Rams defense is vulnerable to downfield throws. Gilles already talked about that, but they also use cover 4 at the highest rate in the league. Shaheed has torched cover 4 defenses over his first 2 seasons. This year, he has the 11th most yards against cover 4 on downfield throws. And that's despite missing 2+ games. And last year, he didn't even break onto the scene until week 12 when he became a full-time player. And he had the 4th most receiving yards on targets, 15+ yards downfield against cover 4. And he's only played 2 other teams that rank in the top 7 in terms of usage of cover 4, the Colts and Texans, and he's averaged 119 yards a game against those defenses. So this is just a great spot for him. He's a guy where, you want to invest in the alt markets because, he has such a wide range of outcomes. So let's shoot for the moon here. Let's go for over 50+ receiving yards.
And we're getting that at plus money, which is always a positive thing. They're going up against a Rams team that you mentioned allows explosive plays, the 3rd most yards per game on 15+ yard pass attempts. So if the ball's going to Rashid Shaheed, it's going to be probably in those bigger chunk plays, which means that it's going to be easier for him to get to that over. What's the second option, Sean?
Yeah, the second one is the first quarter to go over 7.5. I talked about this in my Thursday Night Football preview, but both offenses are capable of attacking the weaknesses of the opposing defense. We just talked about, Rashid Shaheed against cover 4. They have Chris Olave as well. I mean, both those guys, this will actually be the first time since week 12. Both these receivers are healthy, and that's the best way to exploit this Rams defense. On the other side, the Saints really struggle against slot receivers. Alontae Taylor has a lot of the most targets, receptions, and yards as slot receivers this year, so he's going to have an almost impossible task of trying to slow down Cooper Kupp of all people. The Saints have gone over 8-4 to the over in the first quarter of this year, where the Rams are 8-6. And I looked, and these teams play way faster in the first quarter specifically. The Saints operate at the 3rd fastest pace, and the Rams operate the 7th fastest pace in the first quarter. I think they're just trying to catch defenses a little bit off guard when they go through their scripted plays to open the game. So, the first quarter, I think specifically is where I want to attack the over here. And as Nick mentioned, I had this ridiculous take about LA traffic. The fact that the game's on a Thursday night, it's rush hour, it's raining here. If I left right now, I'm like 5 miles from the stadium. It'd probably take me 2 hours. So I'm saying, the crowd might not be there in the first quarter. Not that us LA fans are very loud. We don't have much of a home field advantage because of it, but there's going to be probably even fewer people there early on. So Derek Carr will be able to make audibles at the line. You know, his team can hear him. There's not going to be much crowd noise. No false starts based on crowd noise. Things like that won't be there in the first quarter as much. So another angle why I like the over in the first quarter.
If there's crowd noise, Sean, it's going to be from the Saints fans that came in town
Yeah.
for this game, and they're going to be ready to go. I like where you're looking at here. It also just feels like, man, these two defenses are in a bit of a slump right now. On paper, it looks like the Saints have the better defense, but man, it's back and forth. And just like sometimes you just got to simplify it and think about when you think of the Saints, when you think of the Rams, you think of the offense. That's just how it's been historically in the last few years. And I know that right now it's been a little bit hit or miss for New Orleans, but I like where you're looking in 7.5. It feels like a good number for the first quarter. So we can vote on our third leg. It's either going to be over 7.5, or we are taking the alt line of Rashid Shaheed, 50 plus receiving yards. Jill, Nick, let's vote. Three, two, one. The final leg is what? Run it back, Rashid Shaheed. 50 plus receiving yards. Look, if we're betting on Rashid Shaheed to get a touchdown, we've got to take an over here. And I like the approach of going with the alt line. It gets us into plus money. I cannot wait to tell you what the payout is of this parlay, but it just makes it more of a correlated bet when you're looking at the ways in which he can get in the end zone, the ways in which he can catch the ball, and how those chunk plays are going to happen against the Rams defense. So Gilles, why did you like this one instead of the first quarter?
Well, I mean, I'm already on his touchdown. And I mean, I think it also is worth noting that both of those games that Sean cited of the Texans and Colts, he did score a touchdown in both of those games, by the way. But I do think there will be scoring in this game. I think he made a very good point about the pace of both of these teams, but he had me at Shaheed. That's the way it goes.
Oh, he had me at Shaheed. Do you remember whenever like the teams do their Valentine's Day post? I feel like that's always one that they're throwing in the Instagram. Okay, Nick, why did you like the Rashid Shaheed instead of the first quarter?
I mean, he can clear this in one catch.
Right.
He has 7 catches in his career of 50 yards or longer and 10 of 40 yards or longer out of his 64 catches in his career. So with shout outs to the Action Network Discord, we need Shaheed.
Need
There we
Shaheed.
go.
Oh, I didn't even realize that it said need Shaheed. I thought it just said Rashid Shaheed. I love that. Okay, so we've got to recap here because we've got a fun one. It's all Saints, 1 under, 1 over. But here's where we're going. We're going Derek Carr under 1.5 passing touchdowns. Then we're going to Rashid Shaheed to get in the end zone anytime touchdown score. And let's go run it back with Shaheed. 50 plus receiving yards. That's an alt line. And when you parlay the 3 of these together, you're getting plus 1572 on FanDuel Sportsbook. And you want more? You want to make this a better payout? Let's throw in Alvin Kamara over 30.5 receiving yards as our bonus bet. He's gone over this in 9 of the last 11. It's actually been over 33 receiving yards. We mentioned the unique ways that the Saints utilize him in this offense. It's all the time in the passing game. And if you add him into this, the parlay's now at plus 33.95. So do as you will, mix and match, throw in it however you'd like. But this Thursday crew, always on a roll. So my suggestion would be just run it back with the TNF crew. Nick, Gilles, Sean, have so much fun tonight. Good luck, and we'll catch you here next time on Action Island.